right. Leadership development consultant, Toastmaster, entrepreneur, and cancer survivor. Ms. Jena Perkins, thank you for joining us here at Line Impact.
I am so glad to be here. We've talked about this for a while, and I'm glad we're making it happen today.
You're so right. Now, I hear the word cancer survivor, and I'm thinking, wow, this is practically Superwoman sitting in front of me. So now, I heard you say earlier on a previous show that I actually watched with you, you talking about if detected early enough, what are the percentages of surviving cancer?
Okay, so I'll give you some statistics, but let me kind of tell you my story first so that you'll understand, you and the audience.
Sure.
Because cancer is a very scary word if you've never experienced it. And my family has been touched by cancer in so many ways. My mom's sister was diagnosed in 1994 with breast cancer for the first time.
Oh, wow.
My mom in 1996. So when my mom and my aunt were both diagnosed, my sister and I started doing the early prevention. We started mammograms. I was 34 when I had my first mammogram.
Oh, wow.
And every year after that, we were very faithful.
Wow.
Okay. My sister was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer, even going through all of her mammograms, because the tumor that her body had created was not detectable through the mammogram.
Oh, no.
Okay. So I started doing the MRI mammograms, which means I actually take visual images and not just the mammogram that people know today. So my breast cancer was diagnosed so early that my radiologist said it would not have been seen on a mammogram for about 2 years. That's how small it was.
Well, so now, did this happen because you had been getting checked out since you were 34?
Absolutely. This is really important for your listeners to understand, okay? About 1 in 8 women will develop breast cancer in her lifetime. 1 in 8. Okay, so when you look at your family, 1 in 8. This is projected for 2021. An estimated 281,550 women will be diagnosed with invasive breast cancer, along with 49,290 non-invasive, what they call in situ. Now, about 2,650 new cases of invasive breast cancer are expected to be diagnosed in men in 2021. A man's lifetime risk is 1 in 833. Okay? What I want you to keep in mind is it's estimated that about 30% of all cancer diagnoses in 2021 will be breast cancer. And about 85% of breast cancer will occur in women who have no family history. I say all this to give you the last statistic, and this is the most important statistic. When diagnosed early and in the localized stage, the 5-year survival rate is 99%. I have women a lot of times who say, but I just don't want the mammogram. And I just don't play anymore. My response is, would you rather take a few minutes to have your breasts smashed in and looked at? Or do you want to spend several months having chemo and radiation? It's your choice.
Oh, wow. So now you walk into a doctor's office and the doctor tells you you've got cancer, right? What's going through your head at that point? What would be going through an individual's head? What does that feel like when someone pretty much tells you, hey, you've got the C word? How does that feel?
Well, so it's kind of funny, Michael. I would say that my family was probably uniquely prepared with my family history because my mom and my aunt both were diagnosed with breast cancer, and then each of them had the re-diagnosis. Excuse me. And then with my sister's diagnosis, I just knew, I told my husband, I said, it's not a matter of if, but when. That's how my mindset became. I knew I was going to be diagnosed with cancer. I just knew it because it ran in the family. Okay. Wow. So I already had my plan in place. I already knew what action I was going to take when I was diagnosed, not if, but when.
Right.
So I think that with our family history, I was able to be a little bit more mentally prepared. Now, for a woman who has no family history, who's never heard those words, it can be scary. It can be really scary.
Right.
And the hardest time, this is what I've learned because my husband also had been diagnosed with cancer 3 different times, not breast cancer, but cancer. Mm-hmm. The hardest time for anyone, I promise you this, is between the time you hear the words you have cancer and the time a treatment starts, whatever the treatment is, because you're sitting here during this void saying, I've got something in my body. Hello, there's something in my body. What are we doing about it? Hello.
Right.
And then you start treatment. From that point on, you've got a plan and you're fighting the beast.
Wow.
So once you start fighting the beast, it's it becomes what you do. That becomes your task.
So now, there's a lot of people out there who kind of feel like, well, if you go to the doctor, they'll find something for you. What message would you have for young men and women that are just afraid to hear that truth, or just afraid to go and almost picking on the giant, waking him up, as opposed to, hey, face this now, and yeah, it might be hard, but you may survive?
Well, I'm going to use myself as an example, because as diligently as I maintained everything, so when I started doing my MRI mammograms, I was in the doctor's office every 6 months, because the mammogram was every year, the MRI was every year. They were 6 months apart.
Okay.
So I was literally being checked every 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Now, I missed a couple of MRIs because my husband had been diagnosed and I was dealing with caregiving for that. So I never missed my mammogram, but for some reason I missed a couple of MRIs. And then one day I woke up and I said, I've got to get my MRI. I've just got to get my MRI. I had this nagging feeling.
Right.
Got to get my MRI. When they found the cancer, it was so early. It was so early. My course of treatment was literally a double mastectomy, reconstruction. It was so early, I did not need chemo.
Oh, wow.
I did not need radiation. I mean, I went into the surgical suite, stage 1 cancer, came out cancer-free.
Okay, so now you mentioned the stages. A lot of people probably who are not familiar with cancer don't know about the stages. What do they mean, and how do you rate these stages, and how dangerous are they at different times?
So I'll give you my non-clinical answer to that.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, the stage 1 is the least scary. It's the least invasive, if you will.
Okay.
Okay, all the way up through stage 4, which means that not only is it in your breast, it has gone outside of your breast, it's in your lymph nodes, and it's possibly running through your body, could have settled in other areas of your body.
Okay.
Okay. So the earlier you're diagnosed, the better chance you have of survivability. And the earlier you're diagnosed, the easier your treatment will be.
Understood.
Okay. That's why preventive care is so important. Yeah. It's just so important. I get that it's scary. I get it. I do. You and I have talked, I have an 11-month, my 14-year-old grandson at 11 months was diagnosed with cancer, stage 4,
14.
all over his body. He's 14 now. He was 11 months at the time. So he's essentially a 13-year cancer survivor.
Wow.
He survived his cancer.
My goodness.
And so, cancer comes in all shapes and sizes. The best thing I can tell you is know your body.
Yeah.
Know your body. When you see something that changes, check with your doctor. And men, I'm going to tell you this. I had a man who came to tell me one time, men don't get breast cancer. We have no breast.
I knew you were going there.
I sat there and I thought, how do I respectfully respond to the fact that he says men have no breast?
Right.
And then he kind of stood there, and it's like the light bulb came on. He said, can I retract what I just said?
Right.
I said, you can, and let me add this. When the statistic, 1 in 833 men will be diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh, wow.
Men have breasts just like women do.
Sure.
And when you notice something, when you have a little bit of soreness or you're seeing changes, or you're not feeling right, don't take an aspirin and think it will go away.
Sure.
Your doctor would much rather have you come in and let him tell you it's nothing right now than to come in a couple of months later when it's sore and it progresses, and then you go into the deeper treatment. Men have mastectomies just like women do.
So then for individuals who, have cancer and they're at a further stage along in that cancer, how important is an individual's attitude to fighting it as well? Does that play a role?
I think attitude is crucial. Number one, attitude tells you whether or not you can get up in the morning. Am I going to get out of bed? Am I going to brush my teeth? Am I going to, whatever I'm going to do? My husband used to call me Pollyanna. Pollyanna, because I would always see the world as it should be and as it could be. Okay?
Gotcha. Yeah.
So Pollyanna, I always see the beauty and the greatness in things. So he's always called me Pollyanna, because when he was diagnosed with his first cancer, I'll give you this as an example. In 2002, he was diagnosed in September. They told us that he had less than a 30% chance of being alive by Christmas that year. That was pretty much almost darn near a death sentence.
Yeah.
It was tongue cancer. It was inoperable. It was at the base of his tongue back here. And they said we can try this treatment. And my husband said, I'm a Christian. I know where I'm going. I've had a good life. I've led a good journey.
Yeah.
And you know what? If there's something you can do on me that will help people who come after me, go ahead.
Wow.
And at the end of the 90 days, because that's what we were looking at, at the end of 90 days, as his last treatment ended, he was declared cancer-free.
Wow. And you think a lot of that had to do with his attitude? And
I think it had to do with his attitude, because he was willing to get up and fight and do what he needed to do. And I told him, David, you will be a survivor. He said, we'll see. And he said, but look at the statistics. And I said, exactly. Look at the statistics.
Right.
He said, but 80% die. And I said, but 20% don't. Pollyanna.
So now, the loss of your husband, how are you able to rebrand your life after such a tragedy?
So I think that goes back to my comments earlier. My family was, I think, uniquely prepared for that.
Yeah.
My husband had 3 cancer diagnoses.
Wow.
The first one, they gave him 3 months to live, essentially. And that was in 2002. Everything after that, we considered his bonus time on earth. We just called it his bonus time. And we chose to live every day intentionally. See, here's the key. Here's the key that people don't think about. We are all terminal.
Yeah.
We just don't live like it. From the time we exit our mother's womb, we start the process of dying. And
Right.
people don't think about that.
Sure.
Okay? Because we live like we will always live. So my family, my 3 children and I, we lived our lives to honor my husband. We made memories. We did things. We were intentional about what we did. So when my husband's 3rd cancer came in 2017, in March, he told me he didn't think he had a year left. And he passed in August. So we did everything we could in those 5 months to make time. We had family pictures taken. We took a family vacation. We spent time with the grandkids. We did the things that were important to my husband and important to us. So knowing that I was going to become a widow, knowing that, my husband said my job in March, he said, my job now is to prepare you to be a widow, to prepare you to be alone.
Oh my goodness.
So, I mean, there were lots of things that
Tough
we did.
Conversation.
It's, it was a tough conversation, but that told me how much he loved me.
Yeah.
That, to me, that was love. It was all about love. So how do I rebrand myself now? Because I had always been William and Heather and Charles's mom, David's wife.
Yeah.
That had been kind of my identity. And,
Sure.
and Jena still.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out, what does my new world look like? And really, in some of those ways, I'm still kind of figuring that out.
Yeah.
It's been 3.5 years. I think I've made a good move toward it. But one of the things you mentioned, leadership. I work with my company and love what I do. I love what I do, working with our leaders. And I just pour into them, give them knowledge and skills, and help them to move in their careers. That's one of my passions. Now, being an entrepreneur, that's another part of what I find I need to do. My company is a good company. I'm paid well for what I do. At some point, I'm going to retire.
Sure. So now we talk about leadership, which you're awesome at. But now for an individual who might be watching this today and they think, you know what, you hear about the goal settings and you hear about following your dreams. It's really easy to say that. But when you have a 9-to-5, you got 2 kids, you got a family to take care of, you got this, you got that, bills through the roof. How do you actually take realistic steps to go after these goals and these dreams that one might have?
That's a really good question. And I think people sometimes tend to lose sight in the day-to-day doing this. I'm not living, I'm doing.
Sure.
Right? I'm getting the kids fed. I'm going to the PTA meetings. I'm going to the soccer games. Here's what I would encourage folks to do who are kind of in that part of their life. What is it that you want to do?
Sure.
Figure out what you want to do. And let's say that my dream is to own a bakery.
Okay.
I don't know. My dream is to own a bakery, but I've got 3 kids and I'm running back and forth and I don't ever see that happening. What can you do in your life today that's going to help you develop the skills necessary to opening a bakery?
Kind of like we're focusing on your daily habits.
Yeah. So look at your daily habits. So when you need when the kids need cupcakes at school, are you going to go to Tom Thumb and buy a couple of dozen cupcakes? Or are you going to take time and really make some beautiful cupcakes and put your own sprinkles in your arrangement on them? Start developing your talents.
Right.
Okay. When you have things going on in the community, how can you contribute to the community? Maybe you bring baked goods. Start getting your name out there. Run a little thing on Facebook saying, hey guys, this is something I do in my spare time. Anyone need cupcakes? Anyone need a cake? So you start building your brand before you build your brand. But you figure out what is your goal? What do you want?
Yeah.
And how can you daily move toward that? Not necessarily in huge, big ways, but in small ways. How can you every day walk toward that goal so that by the time you say, you know what, I think I'm ready now. The kids are in middle school. They don't need me as much. I can start pursuing my dream of having a bakery. You have a following. It's not going to be such a hurdle to overcome when you decide you're going to hang your banner and open your bakery because people know you. They've purchased from you. They love what you have. They've told their friends. You'll have people coming to your bakery once it's open. So it's a little less scary.
Right. So you literally have to start from scratch. And I remember when I first met you, I had never heard this term before, but you said, before you can be good or before you can be great, you got to be good. Before you can be good, was it you got to be bad?
Got to be bad. Mm-hmm.
And before you can be bad, you got to get started. I think
absolutely.
In that order. Am I still getting that right?
That is absolutely. People just want to go from 0 to great.
Right.
I want to go from 0 to being the best bakery in the world.
Sure.
Okay. Before you can be great at whatever it is you do, you got to be good.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, before you're ever good, you got to be bad. You got to make those mistakes and kick those.
Yeah.
But before you're ever bad, you got to get started.
Right.
Because if you don't start, you're never going to go through the stair steps that it takes to become great at what you do.
Absolutely. I look at, whether it's social media or entertainment, television, whatever it may be, I think sometimes when we look at things like that, it gives us this unrealistic view as to how success works because we're only looking at maybe a finished product or maybe a product which they over-exaggerated something a little bit. And now you're comparing yourself up against something that has been kind of, diluted, if you will. And I think it can be very depressing for people to go, how am I supposed to get there? That it seems like the distance between me and whoever, it's just like they're not even human compared to me. How do they do this?
I think one of the saddest things in our lives right now is the attention people pay to social media.
Sure.
And the leverage people give social media over their own beliefs. Okay?
I definitely agree with you.
I don't know if you've listened to contemporary Christian music. Matthew West has a song out called, I think it's called It's Fine. And he talks about that. He says, people say, how are you? And you say, yeah, I'm fine, but I'm really not.
Yeah.
Because people don't want to hear that you're not doing well.
They really don't.
They don't. So when you take a look at social media and you take a look at this, to the bakery example, right? So I'm Susie's Bakery and I want to open up and I really want to have my product out there. And then I see Michael's Bakery that has this 18-tier cake with all these fireworks and everything. I'm thinking, I could never do that. Right. Well, what I don't see is someone behind the cake holding it up. And what I don't see is what I don't see. Yeah. What I don't see is all the effort that Michael took into making that one cake look so awesome. Now, it may taste like crap, but it looks great.
Absolutely.
Don't ever compare yourself to anyone else. God made each of us to be unique beings. He didn't make us to compete with others. Yeah. He made us to be the very best version of us we can be.
Absolutely.
So when you take your focus off of social media, when you stop trying to compare yourself to your best friends and your neighbors, your life is so much more satisfying. You don't know what's going on behind the closed doors.